Joan, for the invitation. And again, I'll try to keep this high level as best I can, so we're not too far into the weeds. So there'll be plenty of time for questions. So to start off with Remote Workforce Keweenaw, again, just as a general concept here, this was all about creating a more robust regional economy through the recruitment of remote workers and remote entrepreneurs. Just to give you a little bit of historical context on the initiative, this was something that I started back in December of 2018, and then I regionalized the concept because it was totally about trying to set up an economic development initiative for Chassell when I got started. But there was an opportunity through the Western Upper Peninsula Planning and Development region. They had Regional Prosperity Initiative, community marketing mini grants that were available in 2019. And I leveraged that grant to establish the initiative's first website, as well as to help with some of the initial social media promotion that I was doing at that time. But of course, the big thing that happened was COVID. I mean, it quite literally caught a wave with that. People were at that time, were looking to get out of metropolitan areas, because of what was going on, especially because everybody was working from home. And well, hey, if you could work from home wherever, I mean, why not the Keweenaw? And so again, it was a great opportunity there to catch people. But a thing that has also been a factor in terms of encouraging people to come this direction has been the impact of climate change on other regions. I mean, we've got people here from the Pacific Northwest, places like Idaho, and it's large, because there was some really bad wildfires that created, really bad air quality situations in a lot of those areas. That was the specific reason a number of the people that we have from particularly the Northwest, and that's why they came. And so that's been another big factor here as well. So a little more history. We had an opportunity to rebrand the initiative. So the logo you see today that we use was part of that, as well as the current website. But that was something that I was able to do with the financial support of a number of organizations and individuals involved. There was like Whoopeter, Copper Shores Community Health Foundation, the Keweenaw Chamber, Visit Keweenaw, the Keweenaw Economic Development Alliance, and then I have some realtor partners that have been involved. Gretchen Jansen, Kevin Limata, and Christine Widener have been big supporters, as well as Scott McInnes, and of course myself. With that financial support, we were able to develop the current website and the current branding. So there's a value proposition that the initiative sets forth, and this is something that, as you look at everything that we do from a social media standpoint, that kind of runs at the core of it, and you'll see it in all of my messaging. But we start off with this whole idea of, do you embrace winter? Because we don't want everybody here, okay? It's just, because I mean, if you sell the Keweenaw in, August and September, for example, man, everybody would be here, but we've got to be realistic about the fact that winter isn't for everyone. But what my thinking about it is that there is that slender portion of the bell curve out there that absolutely embraces it, like those of us who live here. And so that's the kind of messaging that I'm focused on to try to encourage people to consider the region. But again, we're very upfront about it, and I just soon wipe 90% of those who look at us off the table at that point and get really focused on those that will. But then, the next thing that I talk about is the area's ubiquitous natural beauty. I mean, let's face it, it's everywhere. And, and that's a huge selling point for a lot of the people who come to the region. And then, of course, it's the lack of congestion. I mean, we've got to remember that, only 3% of Michigan's population lives above the bridge. And, you're basically 300,000 people out of 10 million in the state of Michigan that are up here. And given the geographic expanse that we cover, certainly the density of our population is, pretty thin. And so there's a lot of room for growth, and we can talk more in question and answer about this, but I know that's something that a lot of people get concerned about is, oh, well, isn't this going to make things more congested? But there's a lot of room for growth in that regard. And then, also, big on the point of, what we face in terms of crime statistics. It's very low up here. And so if particularly people who might be coming from urban areas, clearly, we face, a lower crime rate here. And so that's a big selling point for a lot of people. And, and granted, we've seen housing costs go up, largely as a result of, the impact of short-term rentals on our market, but still relative to other parts of the country, our housing costs are considerably less. And so, those are kind of the five major points in the value proposition that I present. And then it's the whole idea that, if you're answering yes to those questions, we're probably the most amazing place people have never heard of before. So what's the strategy? I mean, how do I go about selling it? So a big part of what I do is to tell the stories of our current remote workers or those that are coming here on workations through social media vignettes. And so my sweet spots for those have been on LinkedIn and Facebook, but I share them across all of my platforms as well. And it's been about those individuals in their own voices telling others what it is about the lifestyle here that drew them here, and to help support it, what they're saying with photographs. And so that's been a huge part of my strategy in terms of getting the messaging out. But I also spend a fair amount of time trolling articles like on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, and X, that are dealing with the topic of remote work, with links back to the social media. And there was a huge opportunity with this, particularly when the big return to office thing was going on after COVID. And it was a really great opportunity to take issue and to, with a lot of the conversations, that, corporate America was putting out there in many instances about the need to come back to the office. And we can talk about this more, but there's some really great people to follow out there, particularly Nick Bloom at Stanford University, who puts a lot of information out. He's a great person to follow on LinkedIn in particular, if you're really interested in what's going on with remote work and the research into it. So the other thing about the strategy, it's about driving people who might be interested in coming up here to work remotely to some key points of entry. And one of those that of course, is our webpage. And so we get into, a lot of the details there, and that can be found at remoteworkforsekeweenaw.com. And so we cover the value proposition, and I've got realtor links out there, and there's ways for them to connect also with my newsletter, which is a blog that I write on Substack about day-to-day living up here. And that can be found at remoteworkforsekeweenaw.substack.com. And it's been a great way to, particularly through my newsletter, to reel people in. I've got hundreds of people who follow me out there, and people will follow me, and then I'll get like messages out of the clear blue sky from people who want to know more. And how do I find, because it's not even necessarily just people who want to work remotely, but it's people who just fall in love with the whole concept of the Keweenaw and the lifestyle that's here, and they want to learn more, and they want to know about how do they find out about housing and so forth. So that's been a really, really great way to get people connected. The other thing that I've been doing as well, I particularly working with Brad Barnett at Visit Keweenaw, I've piggybacked on their workation promotion. And so I cross promote with them, they cross promote with me. And the result's been that when people Google, Upper Peninsula remote work, the first thing that they're generally seeing is the Remote Workforce Keweenaw initiative. So that's been a really helpful relationship there as well. So, as I said, I mean, social media is a huge part of this. And so I am relentless about social media. And for those of you who may follow some of my stuff, I mean, I'll have to admit, I haven't been focused on selling people here. We all know what it's all about. So my focus is on outside the region. But I do have the Remote Workforce Keweenaw Facebook page. And again, that's been a great place to share the vignettes on the remote workers that I've been able to work with on sharing their stories. LinkedIn has been a really great place to share that information as well. Get some really good nationwide sharing of the information that I put out there. Uh, I've got a series of Pinterest boards at Remote Workforce Keweenaw. If people want to take a deeper dive into particular areas of interest here in the Keweenaw, so that's been an angle. And I've had, typically I average, like right now I'm probably doing like between, I mean, 60,000 and 65,000 views a month on my Pinterest boards, for example. And then, of course, because I spend a lot of time in the outdoors, I share, I do a lot of work with my GoPro, and then I share those adventures on my Remote Workforce Keweenaw YouTube channel. And I've got over 20,000 followers on that. And so that's been a great way to get people in touch. And even if they don't come up here to work remotely, it's also been a great way to maybe augment the messaging that Visit Keweenaw has going on about, coming to visit the area as well. And then I'm on Instagram and Threads. It's again just another angle to kind of reel people in. And then, of course, X, which was formerly Twitter. I'm not so much active there because it's just so full of bots on X that it's not as productive as Blue Sky. Blue Sky, if you're not on Blue Sky, that is an outstanding alternative to what was Twitter, but now X. So that's been a great place to dialogue with folks and to get them introduced to the Keweenaw as well. And then, of course, my newsletter that I do on Substack, and I typically produce that. It depends on the time of year. During winter, it tends to be more once a week, but during the summer, I might be 3 times a week because I've got so many adventures going on. So, but that's really been an outstanding way, as I said, to reel people in. So the payback. So, the whole concept here is that we create a more robust economy that's driven by the salaries and the health insurance that's paid by companies out of the area. I'd say some 60% roughly of the folks who are up here working remotely are in information technology related fields. Many of them are highly compensated, oftentimes earning six-figure salaries. They've got company paid health insurance, as and I believe I heard UP Health System Portage at a chamber event not so recently here. I guess it's been in the last several months, but they talk about how about a third of our population up here has privately covered health insurance, a third is Medicare, and a third is Medicaid. And so part of this is if we can get more insured lives up here. I mean, one of my goals is to have to work toward a better healthcare system up here. And again, getting more insured lives up here is certainly a huge plus in that regard. And then we create local job opportunities for those already here. Because, I have a lot of people say, well, what's in it for local residents? But these folks who are coming in working remotely, in many instances, they're building new homes, or they're doing work on existing homes. So, it helps the construction industry. Clearly services, across, you name the service, they're benefiting there. And of course, retail benefits. And that would include like and services wouldn't be like restaurants and so forth. And so we do, really help our local economy, but it's in a very quiet sort of way that this happens. And then the other thing that's really been a big plus here is that, there's oftentimes, trailing spouses and partners who are associated with the remote workers coming in. And so that's been a way to help meet demand occupation needs that our area has, because there's oftentimes a very talented individual who comes, along with that remote worker. And so that's been a big plus here as well. So again, payback, what else? So my most recent documented number of people since the beginning of the initiative, I know I'm way underreported in this regard, but I've documented some 235 since the start of the initiative, but I know I'm undercounting. I know Eric Wara did a survey within the last couple of years that he didn't have names to go along with it because it was an anonymous survey, but I think they had over 90 remote workers just in Houghton alone, for example. And so that's something that I certainly encourage people to reach out to me, but certainly, I'm sure we're way north of this 235 figure at this time. And the other thing that, talking about payback, I think another important aspect here, it's the opportunities for our local organizations, whether it's the university, our local communities, or our nonprofit organizations. If we network with these people, I know, especially with the number of people who are, like in IT, for example, I've connected those folks, or a number of those folks, with the dean at the College of Computing, Dean or Levisay, on the folks who are coming in there. And then there's like at the community level, I know like we've got two remote workers who are like on the Chassell Township Planning Commission. I know just through a networking event that we held in Hancock, we were able to involve a remote worker or two in the master planning process that they had going on in Hancock. And then for nonprofit organizations, I know, I think we have two, three, maybe three people on our like Hancock Trails Club board, for example, who are remote workers. And I know there's remote workers who've been involved with the Keweenaw Land Trust, but these are people who are interested in getting involved and have talents that can help benefit our community overall. And so this is just a huge plus all the way around. So, I guess before I get into questions, the other thing I do want to point out, I've been working recently with the Keweenaw Young Professionals, and they're kind of expanding the concept of their organization. And so one of the things that we're looking to do is to see how we can help network people who are new to the community. Because like, for instance, one thing I didn't get into a whole lot is that we've been doing networking events in communities to bring our remote workers together. And in fact, I'm working with Matthew and Claire Tremner, who have the Tremner Farm up in Atlantic Mine. They have an organization that they brought here from Chicago that they operate remotely from up here in the Keweenaw, but they also have their farm. And they're going to be hosting an event at their greenhouse that they recently built. And so that's going to be an opportunity to pull together remote workers more broadly. And again, it's get them networked because we want them to stay. I mean, it's just, because that one of the hazards of remote work is that you can maybe become isolated. And so we want to help get those folks together to make additional friends and maybe help them understand, how it is they can plug into organizations, whether it's government, whether it's the university, whether it's nonprofit organizations, get them more involved. So anyway, that's kind of the quick fire hose version of what I've got going on, but I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.